Hello everyone, welcome into CMS Connected, the web content management industry news commentary show. Glad you could join us. I'm Tyler Piper here with Scott Liewehr. Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Tyler. Great. Thank you.
Excellent. We've got a lot of good stuff going on today, don't we?
Full show today. Really full show.
Full show, to say the least. We took a lot of time out. Big thanks to, ahead of time, to the producers of the show, really putting together a jam-packed show with a lot of great content. And it's interesting I say content because that's what today's show is really all about, talking about content. So, Scott's not the only person that's going to be on the show today. We've also got, joining us by way of Skype, quite a few different people. So, some of the guests and some of the people that we have lined up today. We have Joe Polizzi from the Content Marketing Institute to discuss his latest blog, some very interesting statistics that he's got out there. We're going to be taking a look at that in just a little bit. Also, a little later on in the show, we've got Marcy Maddox, the Director of Global Product Marketing from OpenText. She's going to be joining us to discuss their Web and Social Analytics 2.0 launch. Very interesting stuff going on right there. Also, John Coonen from CMS Expo. He's going to be joining us as well, really going to be discussing what's happening in the world of open source right now. It should be a very interesting topic because I know Scott, he hinted about some open source stuff just on the last episode of CMS Connected. We'll talk about that a bit more. Now also, finally, we're going to be having our vendor spotlight segment. It's going to be a new segment that we're introducing this week. You're going to want to stay tuned to that because Darren Guarnaccia, the Senior Corporate VP Product Marketing from Sitecore, is actually going to be joining us to discuss, well, what's really going on and what's new with the Sitecore platform. Now, before we really get going, of course, we got to thank the great people that helped put on this show and really put it together. Some of the sponsors of CMS Connected that really make this entire thing happen. First off, we've got Falcon Software as always. Falcon provides web creative, e-commerce, content management, social media, and mobile solutions for organizations across the globe. Of course, we also have CM Pros, the Content Management Professionals Association, and they help its members by enhancing their knowledge and expertise, sharing practices, and connecting members from all over the world. Like I said, guys, interesting stuff today. Scott, are you ready to get going?
I am really ready to go. I've been looking forward to this show. It's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Without a question. So, of course, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start and kick things off with a very special guest. He actually is joining us by way of Skype right now. He jumped on the call just a few moments ago. We welcome in Joe Polizzi from the Content Marketing Institute joining us via Skype. Joe, how are you doing today? How are you?
Good, Tyler. Scott, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Without a question. So, you know, I've had a chance, I know Scott as well had a chance to kind of go through one of your latest posts, latest of many posts, I should say, talking about content marketing tactics, now critical to all businesses. Kind of give, for the folks out there that may have not read it just yet, give us a brief summary, really.
Well, I mean, the whole idea of content marketing is the idea that we're all publishers today, right? Of course, content management is all about publishing content, but we're seeing more and more organizations, small, medium, and large-size organizations, take a serious look at saying, hey, we need to be storytellers. And how are we going to do that on an ongoing basis? So the post really talks about the stats. We talked to 1,000+ companies of all sizes, and really what we found is that 90% of companies are creating and distributing their own content. These are non-media companies. These are brands like, you know, Intel, Procter & Gamble, those types of companies. And really what we're finding is they are not only spending more in content marketing, 60%, over the next 12 months, 60% of these people say they are going to spend more. But what we're seeing is 80% are creating their own articles, 74% are creating content specifically for social media, 65% have blogs. So we're all media companies and publishers today, and we're seeing an evolution of marketing departments really turn and look and feel more like publishing departments.
I think that's great. Now, so help me understand then, Joe, is this something that, do we think that essentially is this what content marketers, is this content marketing notion, is this what marketers were doing already then? I mean, if it's the notion of blogging and getting all this content, help us differentiate what is the practice of content marketing versus your kind of traditional marketing.
Well, I mean, if you look at traditional marketing or interruption marketing or paid marketing, whatever, we're basically looking at to see where our customers are hanging out, and we're going to place some type of an advertisement, or I want to say interruption if you want to use Seth Godin's terms, around that content. What content marketing is all about is we want our customers, our brands, to own our media channels. We want to create that trust with them, and we do that through really compelling content. So what we talk to our brands of all sizes about is say, what if you were the leading trade magazine in your industry? How would you create that content? And we take out the sales pitch and we really focus on content that's going to position them as the leading expert. And so what you're seeing is storytelling, which is sort of core to being found in search or social media or lead gen. It's really becoming a central component to everything that we're doing from a marketing perspective. And I think, interestingly enough, a secondary blog post to the one on the one that you guys are talking about, Coca-Cola just came out with their Content 2020 marketing plan, which is 20 minutes of video that basically says Coca-Cola is betting the future of their entire marketing on brand storytelling and content marketing. So it's really amazing to see what's going on, that marketers are taking it this seriously about telling stories to attract and retain customers.
Joe, one of the things I found really interesting is, where that content is actually being created, because a lot of people aren't necessarily just doing it in-house. Talk about some of the stats that you found, that you came up with regarding how much is being outsourced really right now.
Oh boy, it's a great stat, Tyler. I mean, if you look at, most people think that they're doing it internally. We're leveraging employees, product managers, we're hiring people internally, and by the way, that's all happening. But the majority of the people that responded to our survey, over 1,000 people, said, I think the number is 58% of companies outsource some portion of the content marketing process. Actually, small businesses do more. Actually, small businesses do less. Large businesses do more. It's like in the 70% type. So in order to feed the beast and create this content at all different stages of the buying cycle, we need a ton of content. Now, most corporations have a ton of content. You guys know that CMS, there's content all over the place, but a lot of that content is not in the shape that really tells a compelling story, that it can help that customer move through the buying cycle and actually be found and have it be shared in social media. So you're seeing a lot of brands say, okay, we've got this raw content, but what can we do in visual form, video, infographics, whether that's webinars, blog posts, articles, social media, to really tell a compelling story and draw those customers in.
I think that's wonderful. I love this focus. I love the attention that it's getting. In the world of CMS, we talk an awful lot, especially in the web CMS world, we talk an awful lot about web engagement and customer experience management. I've always talked about those much more as a strategy and an approach, more so than a suite of products as it's often positioned as. Help us understand, is content marketing then an aspect of customer experience? Is this going to help us to achieve that?
Well, I think that if you just look at the basic stories you tell as a brand, it's all going to be part of the customer experience. As you know, Scott, we've had conversations about this. 99% of the information that your customers are going to get, they're going to get it before they ever talk to your salesperson, right? They're going to find it from their friends, referrals, they're going to find it through Google. So we've got to make sure that content is accessible, shareable, and in the right places where your customers are at online. I think the biggest thing that we're seeing from a differentiation standpoint is there's new technology now coming out that is going to make it better for people to understand, what's our content being engaged. We have the basic ones, like if you talk social media, you got Radiant 6, but if you look at just content structural project management, you've got things like Kapost, you've got Skyward, you've got Xeris. For content distribution, you've got Outbrain. I mean, I could name dozens of other ones. But I think what we've seen in the last 12 months that has completely changed the way that brands are looking at how to structure this is the number of different technology resources that are new, that are going to integrate with a lot of those CMS solutions. So it's kind of exciting over the next few months to see what happens.
I was going to say, over the next few months is the nutty. I think the stat at the very bottom of the page, I think the last one on there, we can see if we can get that one almost up. It was 60% of B2B marketers say they plan on spending more content over the next 12 months. I mean, 60%. Joe, that's insane.
Well, and if you look at the numbers about the numbers that are decreasing the budget, there's almost, I think it's 1% or 1.5% or something like that. So basically, everybody's either keeping their content marketing budgets constant or they're growing. So there's no recession in this industry, folks. I think that we're seeing an evolution right now. But the good news is, for anybody watching this, is if this was a baseball game, folks, we're just getting out of the dugout right now. So there's a lot of time for this. I mean, we're going through 50 years of mass media that we've just gone through, and now they're saying, no, we're going to go back to telling stories. But now we've got the technology and the barriers to entry are gone, so it's going to be really exciting to see what happens.
Look, now that those barriers to entry are gone, I've just read your book with Robert Rose, Managing Content Marketing. It's a wonderful book. Congratulations on that release. In it, you talk an awful lot about a pragmatic approach to this and how to kind of get out of the gate. I know certainly, again, in the CMS world, people think that this notion of customer experience and web engagement is just so hard to achieve. What are some quick practical steps? How can they get out of the gate with content marketing?
Well, thank you. I mean, thanks for the plug on the book. Robert Rose did a great job putting most of this together. I was happy to help with him on the project. I think that First of all, you got to start from the beginning. What's your content strategy? What are you trying to do? Content can solve a lot of your problems, but it doesn't solve all your problems. So I always like to say to start, where is there something in your marketing program that content could help a little bit, make something that's good, really good, or maybe there's something that's really tough in your buying cycle that's you're having a tough time with. How can content solve that problem? Because you could be talking about top of the funnel attraction content, or we have this hourglass funnel in the book that we talk about, because at the end of the process, we want brand loyalists, we want brand ambassadors, and we do that through different pieces of content. So I'd say figure out what you're trying to do and how content can solve those problems. I think the second thing I would do is look for the storytellers in your organization. Look for who has a nose for the story, because the more people that you have on those sides can see what customers are struggling with, what their pain points are, and can communicate a message that is going to take your brand to the next level in their eyes, it's going to make all the difference.
Joe, I think we could do an entire show with you. I think it's easy as that, right? But we got to let you go. Joe, thanks so much for taking time on that. I know you're a very busy guy. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Anytime, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. That is Joe Polizzi from the Content Marketing Institute. Excellent stuff from Joe. Really appreciate that. But we do, in fact, have to move on. And it's time to talk about some of the news elements, some of the news things that are going on out there. Time to really move on. So the very first news item that we have to get in, we have to talk about SDL. Now, arguably one of the biggest news stories in all of January has been SDL's official announcement on the acquisition of Alterian. Now, on January 30th, SDL announced the completion of the acquisition of Alterian for net cash consideration of roughly $110.4 million US, just a small little number right there. Mark Lancaster, executive chairman of SDL, had some very interesting comments about the acquisition.
With the acquisition of Alterian, we've now got the ability to understand much better what our customers want. Where we see customer engagement going, I think is, we think all information that customers want is going to be presented to them on the web, and so they'll receive that information through a number of devices, whether it be a mobile device, whether it be a PC, whether it be a laptop, a tablet. Essentially, it's not just presenting marketing information, we're now moving into user guidance, user support, and so it's closing that loop of purchase right through to familiarization, right through to support, and then back again, if you like, to repurchase. And so it's providing our customers with technology, but it makes it easier for them to actually manage and understand that engagement process with their customers.
I think that Alterian and SDL customers will benefit immensely from the acquisition. From the point of view of our customers, they will have products that help them create content, they will have products that help them manage content, they will have products that help them to manage dynamic web and technical content. They'll have dynamic publishing opportunities, and more importantly, will be able to really drive and optimize customer experience through the technologies that we've acquired with Alterian.
Very interesting stuff indeed. So Scott, having heard all that and obviously following up, it's been about 2 weeks now since it really has come out. So give me some of the benefits of it. What are some of the benefits of this right now?
Yeah, look, I think you have to look at this from a few perspectives, right? I think first of all, from Alterian's perspective, it's great. They gave it a little pushback on the price initially, but this ends up putting them in a nice place. I think, they have had a lot of changeover at the top. I think looking for some direction a little bit there. Certainly in the WCM space, they've had some struggles recently with that, and it hasn't necessarily been their top priority. So from Alterian's perspective, it's great. I think from Alterian's customers' perspectives, there's a couple of different ones there. You've got your direct marketing customers. It's a pretty big part of their business that, frankly, they didn't touch on much in that video. I think for those folks, this is okay. So they don't necessarily know the SDL brand so well. On the web content management customers, I think it's great news. Some might say, oh, this isn't a good thing because any kind of a changeover isn't great. But you know what? What they might have not have realized was, I don't know how much longer Alterian was really going to devote themselves to WCM anyway. It hasn't been their top priority. The product, while it's great, it just hasn't gotten the emphasis that I think it could have. look, you'll keep it as long as this. They'll have some sort of, it won't be an easy migration path over to Tridian or anything like that. I don't mean to make any bets about that, but I do think for those customers to have a forward-looking plan with a very strong company is great. From SDL's perspective, look, they get, it's obvious they get a couple of great things with this, right? They get, a great analytics package in WebJourney, and they also enter the social space with SM2 as the social media monitoring product that they have. So that, from a CEM perspective, really does them leaps, gets them leaps and bounds over into this space, and that really is where they needed it to go. So I think it's great. For the SDL customers, also they reap some benefits from that too.
All right, so there's obviously a lot of benefits that you're hearing from all this, but of course, no matter what way you look at, there's going to be some other sides, a downside almost. Is there any downsides or any smaller step backs from it, or what?
Yeah, less downsides, but some challenges for sure. Okay. Right, I think you've got, at the end of the day, no question that whenever there's an acquisition like this, you worry about a really innovative company and someone like an SDL. Are they going to continue to innovate in that way when you've now got to work on how to integrate products? And let's be clear. Let's be fair. I think that SDL has had some challenges from a technology perspective. They got a lot of acquisitions in there, just kind of streamlining all that kind of stuff. They've got some Java and some .NET, and they're not exactly, they don't have one camp or another. So integrating now a Java product into their Microsoft base is going to be some challenges. How much of that they actually do is up for question. I think the other struggle here, the less obvious one to me, is the positioning of this analytics acquisition. While it does great for them, analytics is obviously a core part of customer experience strategy and web strategy. But I think for them, it's odd to have a large vendor like this kind of go backwards a little bit. It's the mid-market companies that were typically building all those things in. They would have out of the box, they'd have analytics, and they'd have web content management and those sorts of things out of the box. And they had to explain to the larger enterprise customers who already had some of these tools why that was beneficial. In this case, you've got a large enterprise, obviously oriented solution like SDL, many of whom's customers already have an Omniture or some large-scale analytics package that they have to now convince that this new piece of the puzzle is worthwhile for them. So I think it's an interesting challenge. So I think it's great, though.
All right, so a very last question on this, because everybody wants to know as far as the WCM leaderboard is concerned, how's it really affected in the short term?
I think at the end of the day, it seems to me, right, that the Gartners and the Forresters of the world who are creating the waves and quadrants have loved the SDL guys. I think they have, being on the receiving side of that, they have a great outreach to analysts. Look, the product is great. I think one of the things that this does for them as well is at the end of the day, I don't think that SDL was a really big name, understood well, a brand that was understood well by the CMO. And Alterian actually is. They're direct marketing. They're sending out millions of emails on a daily basis, right? And so they're well known by the marketers of the world. And so I think this positioning to them really helps SDL to be much more prevalent and relevant for the marketers.
All right, so we do in fact have to move on because we've got a lot of other news items that we have to get to. And right now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start talking about OASIS, because the nonprofit OASIS recently announced the development of an open standard for web experience management interoperability. Companies such as Adobe, Hippo, Ectron, Oracle, SDL, as we were just talking about, Sitecore, others are going to be collaborating on the standard to extend WCM to meet customer experience needs. Now, we talk about that a lot, Scott. Talk about customer experience needs. Where is this all heading right now? What does this really mean?
I think what we're seeing is that there's no question that web experience management, web engagement management, customer experience, call it what you'd like, that it's a composite. It's supported by a composite of a number of technologies, right? And where web content management is now being asked to interoperate with a lot of other technical capabilities. And so having a standard in place that allows you to more easily have some of those fluid conversations and interactions with these other kind of core features, the analytics, marketing, automation products, CRM is obviously huge integration. So to have a standard where you can actually pull some of those things together nicely is really key. And Adobe and some of the others who are leading the way in this, it's very much at the epitome of their strategy.
Now, what about for, say the average customer, the end user really? How does this really affect them?
In the very near term, it's not necessarily going to. I think,
Really?
I don't think so. It's good that people are talking about this, but this standard is going to take a while to write, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you're going to have
It's not an overnight thing.
You're not
It's
going to
not
reap the
flip a
benefits
switch.
of this tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? In the same way that I think you can liken this a lot to CMIS, the Content Management Interoperability Standard as well, where you're having content flow much more fluidly throughout the enterprise because of its interoperability. But that took a long time. That was, in discussions for a long time, and this is really just getting off the ground, Tyler. So I don't think you're going to see any benefits right now. It certainly is good to have all these guys in the room talking about how they can make their product integrate more easily with other things, because certainly that's not on the horizon, that's here now.
What type of timeline are we looking at then? I mean, obviously, because it does take some time. I mean, if you had to put a number of days on it or anything like that, is it just say, well, someday in the future, or what?
Yeah, I don't think I'm a good expert to be able to answer that clearly, but I'd say that it's not within the next 12 months.
Yeah.
I don't think that we're going to see anything, right? So they're literally just, I think in the last month, have had their kickoff where they are, all assembling with the sponsors to talk about what this is going to mean. And certainly it doesn't mean that they're just getting to the whiteboard now, but at the same time, you also then, once you even create a standard, you leave it open for comments for quite a long time, where it's essentially in kind of alpha and beta mode. So I think we're not going to necessarily see the results of this for a little while.
All right. So we'll definitely see exactly what happens with that, but we do have to move on. We're going to start talking about OpenText right now. Now, OpenText recently did a launch of their new web and social analytics offering for web experience management, social communities, portal solutions, all of the above, really. And to really talk about this brand new offering from OpenText, so we've got Marcy Maddox joining us via Skype right now, so we welcome her into the show. Marcy, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Without a question. So, Marcy, kind of tell us about the launch of Web and Social Analytics 2.0 from OpenText. Give us a little background.
Great. Well, thanks for letting me share it. I do want to go back to a point that Scott made earlier about the approach of customer experiences being more of a strategy. And from us and how we approach it is it's more than just digital marketing or social business. It's moved into customer self-service and internally as well. And to help our customers better understand their own customers, their end users better through intelligence and insight, we developed and enhanced our web and social analytics product. And so we see many of the organizations that we work with are adopting social and mobile technologies to boost brand, to improve their productivity. And what we found unique within our solution is to marry up that internal content editors access and the changes that they're making and how well that is impacting and directly having an impact into that end user's experience. So it is fully on the customer experience road that we see our customers moving into. And just to kind of look back a little bit at those customers that are end users, and building better relationships takes that insight and that intelligence to content management. We heard speak a little bit earlier in this program, but also understanding the devices that they're on and their preferred locations and how well your marketing efforts, your self-service efforts, and even for your employees, how much their own collaboration is increasing their own productivity. So our approach to this is measuring the return on your investment, monitoring the audience's engagement, and our OpenText Web and Social Analytics product is a window, it's a view into many of the metrics that marketers are having to meet on a daily basis, and they're needing to report up to their CMO as well as the IT team is looking maybe for HR or in self-service for customer care, looking at each of these statistics and measuring across the board where are things most popular, identifying that popular content on the website to tone of social conversations so that you're meeting those most influential people in the communities that you are embracing and that you're promoting. And so we found that marketers think that this is gold. It's justifying those precious dollars spent. And I heard the earlier comment made that we may not be in a recession, that we are growing in this particular space, but still every dollar, every euro is important that you're getting that measurement back. And so as we move forward with recognizing each of these top performing employees or that intellectual capital that's getting built inside the organization, it's good to have that dashboard to see it in real time. So we find that there are a few features we wanted to add and promote to measure customer sentiment. In particular is real-time access to that data. You can't wait hours or even days to respond to a note or a comment from one of your customers. It could either be too late or not relevant anymore. And so we put a lot of investment in helping those end users of our system, that could be content editors or marketers, to see those actionable trends and immediately act upon them. A second area that you see in a screen here is the customized reports, and that gives us that goal of a campaign that you can get access to any of the data that's being captured. There's no restrictions to like canned reports or limits to your data. You can create your own customized reports. So for marketing, they might want to have lead conversion, customer satisfaction, or even employee sentiment. They can create these reports with just a few clicks of the mouse. We've also seen it being used for project managers, and they're creating their own personalized reports to track the progress in real time. So it's data that is both secure and accessible. Another area that we've increased capabilities on is activity context. So if you're looking at your web property, you'll instantly see an overlay of information that's most important to you. And this can be a popular blog site, or maybe you're finding that your wiki isn't getting as much traction. You can look in that, you can see the overlay, and from there you can relaunch it or maybe retrain your users to then get that desired outcome. And I think it's important as we talk about business processes that you are defining those key metrics and then measuring to those metrics. And so a lot of our system is built upon setting those goals and then having them being tracked. And so you can see it in real time, what's happening to each of those statistics.
Great, Marcy. I wanted to ask you a little bit, I'm sorry, this is Scott. Do you mind if I ask you a little bit about the social media, the monitoring essentially, the sentiment analysis? Where are we really in kind of that, in the maturity of that technology? I know, during the Super Bowl, for example, if you're monitoring that, just the use of the word super makes every one of them seem like it's a positive sentiment. How accurate is that these days?
It is accurate to an extent. I think it has to go back to the rules that you're putting into place around the measurements of certain keyworded terms. We do some internal metrics around heuristics that are identifying positive ratings, so you can have some controls over going in and analyzing using a human linguistic to it, and then going back in and measuring, was that really how your users were meaning of that tone? So it's all input that you have to take into account. It's definitely not completely perfect yet, so we are moving that direction, but even having the first level of that knowledge is important to start with.
Wonderful. And what's the implication of this on the marketers? I think they're being asked now to be more technologists than they ever have been before. And is this now are they analysts as well? You talk about a lot of metrics and things like that. What does this mean for the role of the marketer?
Yes, definitely. And I love the phrase, marketers are typically the creative art type, and now they're getting the science behind it. And part of the goal is to develop a more easy to use way of reviewing that content. So definitely the user interface is a key metric in those marketers. But at the end of the day, they're being asked by their leadership team to justify their marketing investments. And the more tools you have, the more data and intelligence that you can then share and get every day, everywhere information consolidated into a single place. You can develop those dashboards, and a lot of the technology has come quite further along. We see charts and even in the sentiment analysis, nice little visual dashboards that show you what's happening. But at the end of the day, we are looking at newer roles like marketing operations having more of a relevance in an organization.
Excellent. Marcy, thank you so much. Taking time. I know obviously you guys are very busy right now, so I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for taking time out of the day.
Thank you.
Excellent. That is Marcy Maddox of OpenText. So Scott, with all that being said, and you're hearing that all right now, I got to ask you, for the people out there concerned with monitoring their brand, which everybody is right now, as well they should be, exactly. OpenText, are they on the right track?
I think so. I like this addition. It's certainly nice. I think in general OpenText is a company that tends to innovate through acquisition typically, right? So they've got an awful lot of technologies in there. I think, how well they work together. The question for me is really a roadmap in their strategy, and are they going to stick to one? I mean, they've had a number of content management, web content management plays in there where they acquired a few that, now the question is what's their leading direction? And it looks to me like they care an awful lot now about social and analytics and all that, and that's wonderful. It'll be just interesting to see kind of what they do with the products in terms of integrating them. How is this going to translate over into their, the vignette customers? How are they going to benefit by some of this? Is this going to be worked back into their product, and how are these things going to be working seamlessly together? So I think that's kind of a general answer to your question, because I think it's a general statement about OpenText. I mean, they just, they have a lot of products. So.
Excellent. So from OpenText, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start talking about EndPlay. Now on January 18th, EndPlay, a SaaS provider of web content management, announced a partnership with the Banyan Solutions Consulting Group, marking EndPlay's international expansion into the European, Middle Eastern, and African market. Now, Banyan Solutions actually builds and maintains solutions for some of the largest brands in the UK, France, Belgium, Poland, Switzerland, all over the place, basically. Now, it seems like a significant growth opportunities for both companies overseas, and there definitely has been an underground buzz about EndPlay being really one to watch in 2012. But really the question that I think that's everybody's wondering right now, Scott, I'll ask you this, is who is EndPlay? Who are they?
I think that's a really good question. You say that they're one to watch this year, and I think that they certainly want you to watch them because they've made a big play. I mean, I know I worked with the Gilbane conference, and they made a really big splash there. They announced their product there. This was back in very early December, late November. And so kind of that was the buzz there too. I had a dinner with a number of kind of pundits, and we were sitting around and we were saying, should we tweet out who is EndPlay? It was just it was the question of the day at the time too. I know a little bit about them. They are a SaaS web content management provider. So I think just, number one, their entrance into the market, fully jumping in with both feet and wanting to make that splash, wanting you to care about them is not only getting them some attention, but also the attention to the notion of SaaS web content management, right? So a space previously occupied by Crown Peak and a couple of others, but there's not too many in that niche today. And I certainly am asked an awful lot about SaaS web content management. So the caveat, though, is that while everyone wants to understand what it is and how it can help their business, I don't necessarily see a lot of short lists where customers want to have a SaaS WCM provider be one of their shortlists.
So let me ask you this. When we hear so much about, you talked about the Gilbane conference and a buzz. Yep. So it's a word we use across the board with almost any industry, really. There's a lot of buzz. Sure. But realistically, people want to know, can that buzz transfer over? Can they actually start making moves? After the hype has died down, they actually have to make moves. Is that possible?
And they've got to sell product, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've not necessarily, I don't claim to know how well they've sold their product. I know that I've not seen them in a whole lot. I mean, I've certainly had briefings with them and that sort of thing, so I kind of understand what it is they're trying to do. Their big claim is that they want to be different, and so that's what wants to get them out there. I think this move and the kind of weight that they're placing on an announcement like this, which is really just another partner announcement, right? Another partner that's going to be, implementing their product overseas. It's not a partner that I necessarily know or am aware of. I don't claim to track that market. But I think it's just them trying to stay relevant, trying to keep the buzz going a little bit about them. But to be honest, I don't know so much about their product that I can really tell you that this is, how this is going to play out per se.
Well, now the question begs to be asked and answered really is, who is EndPlay? Again, we want to know from you guys. Make sure you're utilizing the hashtag CMS-Connected on there. We're monitoring the Twitter stream to see exactly what you guys are saying. In fact, so we'd love to hear from you and love to see what you guys think about EndPlay, and can they in fact break through and can they make some moves? Now, we are going to take a very quick break, but when we come back, we've got a lot of CMS Connected coming up. John Coonen from CMS Expo joining us to talk about the latest news and events in the open source industry, and Darren Guarnaccia from Sitecore is going to be on to discuss Sitecore's latest software release, and we also got another new segment. It's called Rapid Fire. That is coming your way right here on CMS Connected.
Businesses today demand a powerful web content management and online marketing platform that can provide the best value at an affordable price with unlimited website possibilities. Kentico, the .NET Enterprise Marketing Solution and web content management platform of choice, powers more than 12,000 websites in over 84 countries, which means you get a stable, well-tested solution. Fully loaded with over 350 web parts and controls and more than 80 extensible modules. Kentico provides you with a fully integrated solution for building your online presence and running successful online marketing campaigns. It allows you to quickly launch an effective B2B or B2C site, intranet, online store, or branded online community, fully integrated with Facebook and Twitter. Organizations need to be more effective at catering to the personalities of their site visitors and the way they consume information. Sites need to more dynamically adjust to each site visitor to optimize their experience. Kentico EMS delivers a complete customer experience management platform that provides all the necessary capabilities for interactive marketing, from planning and conception through optimization and execution. And lastly, analysis. Gain the insight required to analyze your marketing performance. Align the content, execution, and analytics critical for successful interactive campaigns, speeding delivery, and optimizing return on investment. With a fully integrated set of online marketing tools, Kentico EMS can improve your online marketing efforts, which allows you to focus on what's important, making your business successful. Test drive Kentico EMS today to get a complete appreciation of all its powerful features and capabilities.
All right, welcome back into CMS Connected. And you know, Ian, I see you tweeting. We're hoping to be bigger than the Super Bowl one day. That's why we're trying to run some of those ads. That's the end goal, the end play, if you will. So, all right, we do in fact have to move on. So we're going to be discussing some open source CMS news right now. And with our special guest, we've got John Coonen from CMS Expo coming on right now. So, John, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. Thank you very much.
Without a question. So tell me, you know, what's really going on in the world of open source right now?
Well, let's see. We got 8 minutes. So I think narrowing it down, there's just so much excitement really on the Joomla, Drupal, WordPress side, but also with some new players out there that are really making a move to get into the same space, and like ModX and certainly the folks from Plone and others that have been around for quite a while. I think there's a lot of excitement right now. And that we have really, if anything, we got folks really trying to redefine their own business models. So we're at a point in time that right now in the open source world with a lot of these, especially the community-oriented CMSs, where they're figuring out who they are. They finally got their feet, and CMSs like Drupal are really definitely dragging the rest of the open source community side into the enterprise world.
Great, John. I think, you know, I was at your show last year at CMS Expo, and you know that I gave a bit of a talk there, and I was talking there about essentially a call to action for the open source web content management products, more of the projects that are out there, that in order to be relevant in the enterprise, they needed to change a little bit about how they marketed themselves and actually even the product itself. Help me understand, have they done some of that? Are they looking towards that? Are we seeing open source projects kind of start to orient themselves a little bit more specifically towards the enterprise, to make themselves more appealing?
Yeah, well, thank you for throwing me that softball. I think at the end of the day, yeah, absolutely. It's been fun because, I mean, I came from 15 years ago in the Oracle world, proprietary, and we were working on major projects, took some time off to work for about 5 years in the nonprofit world, came back in and saw this open source world, open source CMS. CMSs burst onto the market back in the early mid 2000s, 2005, 2006, and I thought, gosh, what I was selling for $500,000 to $1 million, at least for the licensing fees, is now essentially free as in beer, and what's exciting is really to see that kind of come of age. And I think that they've really, what I thought I could bring to the market a little in what we do with our conference and other things is really kind of bring some of the marketing savvy, maybe, what little I might have, and some business savvy to it, and try to bring others like me into this exciting new market. It's a huge advantage, I think, for the benefit to the entire industry to have, gosh, what do we have now? I mean, there's just between 4 or 5 of these CMSs, there's over 80 million instances out there. So that's great marketing and promotion, really, if anything else, for the entire industry. It doesn't matter whether it's open source or proprietary. And what we're seeing now, I think, is really, to answer your question, is really you're seeing more of these CMSs say, okay, it's time to get serious. Let's get some folks from the proprietary world, the enterprise side, and we call it enterprise, put up the old quotes. Let's bring them onto our board. Let's bring them into our associations. Let's bring them in and actively recruit them into our businesses, because that's absolutely the market that Drupal and certainly, look at Sitecore and look at many others out there, and certainly Joomla and Plone and others. I'll miss some if I try listing them, because we've got like 14 or so that we're spotlighting this year. But you're seeing them recruit those folks into their businesses. So while you talked earlier with your previous guest about the marketers becoming more technical, I think we're finding is on our side, I'm a marketer, I'm one of few, quite honestly, in that marketplace. We're seeing the technologists become marketers. So there's this coming together of marketing and technology that's terribly interesting, and you're seeing recruiting going on really both ways. You're seeing the enterprise folks and the proprietary folks do a lot of recruiting out of the open source world, thousands, tens of thousands of instances of that, and vice versa. You're seeing the open source folks recruit out of the enterprise world.
I think it's interesting that you talk about kind of learning from each other there. Both, it does go both ways, no question about it. And I think one of the nice things about open source is that you're usually seeing an awful lot of innovation there, right? It tends to become the test bed for many of the capabilities and functions that oftentimes later get kind of adopted into the commercial products. Are you seeing some kind of nice innovations that are going on right now in some of these projects that you think are going to make their way back?
Yeah, I think the biggest innovation is probably the fact that they're so fast. We're seeing folks in the open source world really adapt and adopt technology and marketing ideas very quickly. If you're looking at, it's not just in the CMS world, but you look at what's going on with Twitter, and they've been sharing their open source technology freely. If you look at Bootstrap 2.0 and what's happening with Bootstrap right now, a lot of the CMSs in the open source side are looking at Bootstrap and saying, hey, this is a technology we could glom onto without getting into the nitty-gritty details. Because I'm a marketer, I don't do that. But at the end of the day, Bootstrap is a very exciting new feature, really, an opportunity for several of the CMSs to use, not only on the really the admin side, but also on the customer facing side, really to make the CMSs far more mobile and social and cloud driven. So I think at the end of the day, not all that, oh gosh, I remember way back when there was the not created here syndrome going on at Apple. At the end of the day, these folks at these CMSs don't have that problem at all. We don't care if we develop it. At the end of the day, they're picking up the technology from wherever they can get it. And I think to be honest, I think a lot of these folks, especially on the community side, they've graduated from living in their parents' basements. And I'm not kidding. They said, oh my gosh, we're having kids, we got to support ourselves, how are we going to do this? So they got to adapt or die, and so they're grabbing what they can and making it work. and they are absolutely listening to the market and changing it right, changing their CMS and changing their software to fit the need of the market in a matter sometimes of hours. And of course, that's just the exception, but certainly within weeks, if not days, oftentimes. And you just, I'd say that model and that approach has really helped them grow quickly. And part of that, obviously, is also including the community and the process itself.
Hey,
so that whole
John,
concept, yeah.
Awesome. So, again, only in 8 minutes, we're never going to have enough time for this, are we?
on. Yeah.
John, I got to tell you honestly, thank you so much. Really great stuff. You know, as always, my friend, great stuff.
And plug to
I'm
the
happy.
conference.
Thank you.
That is John Coonen from CMS Expo. So one of the things he said there that, let's hone in on that a little bit because it's interesting. Talk about adaptability. Mm-hmm. You have to right now. With the velocity of the technology evolving, you have to be adaptable in this type of situation right now, don't you?
Yeah, you definitely need to adapt. And you know, like I said, give a lot of credit. You know, that community orientation where you've got folks who are out there using this stuff, who have the use cases that you know, the vendors or the organizations are trying to keep in mind. When these use cases are real like that, and when they're able to take some of the innovation that's being done out with the masses and integrate that back, you know, into the core product so that everyone can take advantage of that. I mean, I think that's really where it's at. And certainly the product vendors on the commercial side could really learn from that, right? They've really started to step up their game as it relates to, you know, harvesting innovation from the community and that sort of thing. I mean, it really is moving along.
Now,
well.
one of the things, we're going to move on just a little bit to our next topic, but before we start moving on, I need to focus on this because the last show, you kind of looked into the crystal ball and you talked about open source and you mentioned Drupal. You talked about Drupal, and one of the things John said was, you know, Drupal seems to be that one that's almost kind of pulling the rest of the open source along right now. They're continuing to make strides right now.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It was interesting at the conference that I'm referencing where I made that speech. I kind of went up there in front of a whole crowd of people who are big open sourcers, rah-rah, and I went in there to say to them, you guys need to step it up or the enterprise isn't going to care about you. Mm-hmm. And there were some caveats around that because the enterprise does in many cases. But I thought I was going to get pelted with tomatoes, right? But ended up what happening was actually Dries went the very next day. Dries is the founder, Dries Bartard, the founder of Drupal, and he essentially said the same thing. A person in the audience asked him, you know, what can you guys on the stage, it was a founders panel of a bunch of open source projects, what can you learn from each other? And Dries' answer was, it's not what we can learn from each other, it's what we can learn from the commercial market. So they're definitely orienting themselves to be much more appealing towards, you know, the CMO, not the one-off marketer who, you know, owns a small site and wants to get up something really quickly for, you know, a local regional site, but more the .com. That's what I mean when I'm talking about the enterprise. I'm talking about the enterprise's .com site, their main one. They're really orienting themselves towards that, and they're trying to take on some of those use cases to be more relevant and compelling to that audience.
Okay, excellent. Really great stuff. So that was our talk about open source. Big thanks to John Coonen. Obviously, as always, big thanks to Scott, but he's my buddy sitting next to me, so I have to give him a few props every once in a while. But we do, in fact, have to move on, and it's time to talk about our vendor spotlight. Yes, it's a brand new segment where I'm rolling a couple new segments as well to this. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to be talking about Sitecore. So this time around, we're going to be talking to Darren Guarnaccia from Sitecore. He's joining us right now by way of Skype. Darren, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Excellent, without a question. So kind of tell me, what's going on new right now with Sitecore?
Well, we have a ton of stuff in development right now. It's a pretty exciting time. We just released a whole slew of technology in the last couple quarters, and now we're getting ready to evolve the next generation of the digital marketing suite.
Awesome. So let's talk about that then, Darren. This is Scott. How are you doing?
Hey, Scott.
So let's talk about engagement, because I know that, you know, you guys over at Sitecore, you wear this on your shirt sleeve, right? This notion of customer engagement, and prior to that, web engagement. It's getting a lot of cynicism. A lot of folks are casting spears at this, saying, you know, it's just hype. It's just the vendors are hyping it up. What's your take on that? Is engagement real? Is that a real goal?
It really is. See, the problem is that you need a way to sort of measure the quality. I think a lot of the analytics vendors out there, a lot of the way we measure site today, are really quantity based. You know, it's very how many, how much, And there's no real way to measure how good and the right kind of quality. So the right way, unless you're an e-commerce vendor and you can actually tie transactional value to every interaction, we need a way to actually come up with how good was that interaction. And engagement is the right way to do that, because at the end of the day, particularly if you're a B2B marketer or a brand marketer at a big CPG, you need a way to understand, was this campaign successful? Was this interaction successful? And that's the key behind the idea of measuring engagement, is it's a way to measure how good.
I think that's wonderful, and we were talking earlier to Marcy, and she was talking as well about metrics, and I really like to hear this conversation coming up more and more, because it really should be about thinking, with the audiences in mind and at the end audience. Previously, I think that you guys as vendors were really focused, rightly so, on the folks who are using your product, your users, but now we're really all starting to force everybody to think about the ultimate audience, and you guys have taken a lot of strides in that way. What do you think this has done for the marketer in terms of, now that you've got this suite of tools in front of them that they can use, how has their role changed if they're using the full breadth of your capabilities?
Well, I think it gets back to what's the goal of these interactions in general, right? Let's say you're a B2B organization. Your job as a marketer is to help that business drive revenue. And I think what these tools have done, what we have done with our product is move the conversation from, hey, let's put up some web pages, to, hey, how do I execute campaigns faster? And then even beyond that, how do I drive more revenue overall for the business? And so the conversation has shifted for that marketer. They're not worried about peddling pages anymore. They're worried about maximizing the effective revenue driven from a campaign, increasing return on marketing investment. It's a completely different conversation, and it's a much better conversation to have with your CEO than, hey, I need some more money to go build some more web pages.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we keep looking at it when everybody continues to talk about value and how do you value it. So one thing I have to just kind of add my 2 cents is, it all boils back down to the ROI, right? I mean, we keep saying value, the value of this engagement, but really at the end of the day, Darren, it is that ROI, right?
Absolutely. You're spending money on campaigns. You're spending money on the website itself, on the team it takes to build that. You're spending money on AdWords. All this money is getting spent, and you need to measure. In fact, one of the pieces of research we just did with Forrester showed that one of the number one things that marketers are trying to do is help associate marketing spend to the end revenue. Now, whether you transact or not, you still need to have attribution back to that campaign. And this is what marketers are really trying to do, is associate themselves with that revenue, so they're not the t-shirt department anymore. Marketers are tired of not being given the credit that they are due for the kinds of revenue they're contributing, and they need to find harder ways to get that attribution.
Let me switch gears for a second, and I want to ask you one last question, because you just got time for one more, and I really want to hear your take on this. Experience versus engagement. You guys specifically call your platform the customer engagement platform. We're talking an awful lot about customer experience management. Do you see a difference between those two terms? Are you specifically seeking engagement versus experience?
I think it's very difficult to be credible to say that you can control the customer experience. I think you can offer the customer things. I think it's much more credible to say that you can help with their engagement and you can drive their engagement. I think as a marketer, you have much more ability to control that, because a lot of experience is really in the hands of the customer. And there's a lot of those other intangible factors. That's one of the reasons why when we created our customer engagement platform, we stayed away from the word experience, because A, it's been overused, and B, I just don't think it's very credible that you can say, I can control your experience completely. You can offer an experience, but you cannot control it.
Darren, got to say, excellent stuff. I do believe you and I are going to be having a conversation tomorrow as well. But thanks so much for taking time. I know you're flying literally all over the place right now, so really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. That is Darren Guarnaccia of Sitecore. That right there was the vendor spotlight, a paid spotlight on one of the many great CMS vendors out there right now. Sorry, we do in fact have to move on, and one of the last segments that we're going to be able to wrap up the show with, it's pretty interesting. It's called Rapid Fire. We're going to be able to take a look at several different topics out there. I really have nothing to do with this. Scott, you're going to kind of take the reins on this one, so some news, events, commentary in the CMS industry. Go ahead, let's take it away.
Sure thing. We're going to give this a shot here. Up first, I want to talk about SOPA or PIPA, the Stop Online Piracy Act and the Protect Intellectual Property Act. These were, I think this is a great story, right? Because these were acts that were proposed in Congress that essentially the masses, those of us who are out to try to protect, our rights on the web, essentially, really spoke up on this, and the bill was essentially abandoned. I think it might come back maybe in a different form, but for right now it's off the charts. So that was a big goings-on in the past month or so. The second topic to talk about today is the EPI server. They had a bit of there was some news. You can go to CMS Critic and read a little bit about some of what happened in their partner world. There was some buzz there where they talked about essentially who reigns and the emphasis on EPI server growing. I think for me, though, it brought out one really important point, which was partners are extremely important. We talk here on this show an awful lot about the technology, but who's doing the implementing? That's far more important. I think there's no question that you can have a stellar web presence and engagement with your audience if you have a stellar team working on it and maybe a less than stellar product, but it's impossible to have a stellar web presence if you don't have a team that's working on it that really knows what they're doing. So I think that's key for me that came out of that. The third is DrupalCon. DrupalCon is taking place here in Denver coming up. I think the early bird pricing ends in a week. The interesting thing for me is, as Tyler referred to earlier, last month I talked about Drupal having, possibly one of the largest potential impacts this year. And I think that because of the breadth of the number of installs that they have, and if they do make this orientation towards the enterprise in an appropriate way, in a way that resonates, then I think we're going to see a lot of waves from that. So interesting to check that out. Next one is the CIP, the Certified Information Professional. You all know that I'm the president of CM Pros, and our mission is to try to help professionalize the content management profession. So very much I'm in line with AIM on this, AIIM. They sponsor this. It's a new certification that's just recently come out, where essentially you can, if you think that you've got it, you're up to it, and you're an information professional and you know records management and content management and all those sorts of things, you can take this exam, and I think it's really good for our practice to have a certification and a credentialing process. The next one, it's getting cloudier. So Easy announced a partnership where they're moving their Easy systems and making it available in the cloud. I think the point there that I want to talk about is less about Easy, but just more about this continuation of vendors making their product available in the cloud. So we're seeing more and more of this. And I think the nice thing about that, specifically with Easy, I'll give them a little bit of credit. They actually are making their entire product available in the cloud, whereas others have kind of given a slimmed down version of it in the cloud. But we're definitely seeing this with Adobe and Easy and a number of them who are orienting themselves towards the cloud. Next one, CEM hype. I just want to talk, if I haven't said it already enough times before, this notion of customer experience management, let's not make it bigger than it is. It is a strategy or an approach supported by a number of technologies, web content management being one of them, content marketing also being another core way of supporting that. But the key is you've got to get out there. You need to get started on your content. Take some Joe's advice earlier, and just get moving in this direction. You don't need to have all of your ducks in a row before you take this on. And you certainly don't necessarily have to go buy a new product in order to achieve it. Keep your audience in mind, orient toward and be compelling to them. Lastly, Ectron just announced, I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before, they've hired a new CTO, Tim McKinnon, away from Oracle and Decca. And I think this is a really big move for them. It says a couple of things. Number one, that he considered going over to Ectron. I think that says world for Ectron, and Decca certainly has a great reputation in terms of innovation in the marketplace. Number two, I think what he brings to Ectron is nice. It allows a CEO to separate himself. He was playing that role. So their focus on core technology is going to be key. And then lastly, I think it's just really good for their play in terms of their notion of customer experience management and orienting themselves towards that. Certainly this guy has a lot of experience.
Whew! Take a breather, my friend.
Time?
You got it. You hit it perfectly. Give this man a hand. Great stuff. Good show today, Scott.
I'm surprised they didn't cut me off in the ear. It's like the virtual cane,
Exactly. You mentioned tomatoes. They've got them out back. Unfortunately, we've got glass separating us, so that's a good
Making
thing.
me hungry.
So, good stuff today, Scott.
Great, thank you.
As always, that is all the time we have for today's show. But before we go, I'd like to remind everyone that next show is going to be scheduled for March 15th. Mark your calendars. Sign up. We can't wait to see you here. Also, Scott and I You know, I heard through the grapevine, you've got some interesting news, don't you?
I do. I've got some changes coming. Not ready to announce exactly what they are just yet, but definitely making some moves. And so it's interesting for me. It's really good stuff coming up this year, and I can't wait to let everybody know.
We will definitely be keeping you guys posted for sure. Finally, I'd like to thank both of our sponsors, Falcon Software as well as CM Pros. And on behalf of my co-host, Scott Liewehr, I'm Tyler Piperman saying, so long. Looking forward to seeing you next time right here on CMS Connected. Have a good one.